Thank you. Thank you. Now I invite Mr. Bibu Punaran, Vice President of KMA and Program Committee Chair, to welcome the gathering. Over to you, Bibu.
Good evening, everyone. President Nirmala and all present here today. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you all this evening, and especially our speaker for the day, Dr. Malini Hebbar, who will be introduced in detail later. But what I have to say is this topic that we have chosen today, or rather, our guest speaker has consented to speak, the art of articulation, creating the wow factor. It is indeed something, articulation is something that is needed for everyone, be it a student, be it a businessman, be it somebody on the corporate ladder. The way effectively we put things across is what drives us forward in all our activities. And we have this wonderful speaker with us who I would call a woman of substance, who has got the award for the woman of substance, Dr. Malini. Principally, let me welcome you to address us this evening. I also welcome our senior past presidents, all of you who are there today evening, and the management committee members, the members of the KMA, our student members, and all those present who have accepted our invitation to be here with us to hear this great speaker, who is also an award winner in many forums. And this happens to be the next program on our LeaderInsight series, which we have at KMA. So let's take this forward, and we will be having many more such programs in future. But for the time, this evening, I would hand it over back to Nirmala by welcoming you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bibu Punaran. Chief guest of the day, Dr. Malini Hebbar, Executive Committee members, Managing Committee members, past presidents, KMA members, invited guests, students, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and a hearty welcome once again to KMA's LeaderInsight talk session. James C. Humes was an author and former presidential speechwriter of America. He said, "The art of communication is the language of leadership." For example, Barack Obama, former president of America, such an eloquent speaker with poise and calm. Let's look at the role of communication in business. Today's professionals are required to work in multidisciplinary teams, cross cultures, which put communication and interpersonal skills. The first and foremost of all the skills required for professional excellence, whom anyone, not just a professional for that matter, the most important resource they have to deal with in their everyday life is people. So it is no wonder that interpersonal and communication skill plays a vital role in deciding the success of a person. Communication skills are essential for everyone. So everybody should revise the language habits from time to time in accordance with changing life patterns and customs. Language is an expression of human activity, and because human activity is constantly changing, language also changes along with it. Every communicator must know the significance of language, which is essential for today's world. Today's topic is the art of articulation, creating wow factor. Articulation is the ability to speak with eloquence and fluency, the gift of the gap that some people seems to possess. Articulation is being able to express your ideas in a clear and concise manner. The skill to choose apt words to lend more clarity to your thoughts. Dr. Malini is blessed with the ability of mesmerize the audience with her eloquence. Let's hear from the chief guest of the day, Dr. Malini Hebbar, principal of Swasti College. She is a good friend of mine, and her creative outputs in the fields of dance and dramatics are well known. She has organized many cultural programs for NGOs and other institutions. She is a sought after speaker, lecturer, passionate about avoiding wastage of food. She has started a YouTube channel on wealth from waste. She's a co-author of a book called Vista. She's a much sought after speaker. Presenting you Dr. Malini Hebbar.
Do I start, Nirmala?
Yes, please. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. President Nirmala, the meaning of your name itself is blemishless. So, and that's what comes to my mind when I refer to you by your name, because you have been a close friend. And I must say that a friend who hasn't brought to my mind any signs of imperfection. So I would say blemishless Nirmala. And all the past presidents whom probably I can refer to as handsome past presidents, because there was that kind of conversation going on before the actual recording started. And Vivek was happy that the recording hadn't started. But now I'm not referring only to you, past President Vivek, I'm referring to all past presidents together. Managing Council members, members of KMA, invitees, and all those people, excluding me, 65 people have logged in. And I remain grateful to you that you even think that you can keep aside that much time to listen to someone who is probably a stranger to you. Probably most of you have seen me for the first time. Of course, a few of my family members are there. I saw my sister's name. There is one Suresh. I'm not sure whether it's my brother-in-law. A few of my friends and family members might be there, but for most of you, I'm a stranger. Now, the topic has already been given to you by President Nirmala. The art of articulation was what I had given. The wow factor was what she added, okay? So I have my question marks whether there will be a wow factor or not. But I must tell you that I'm very happy to be with all of you. Probably it is customary for every speaker to say that he or she is happy to be on that platform. But I mean it, because I must tell you, Nirmala, you rose my status to the, sorry, I can't say rose, you raised my status to the level of a mini celebrity, because my sister-in-law shared the poster on the family group, and all my family members started writing, "Great Mala, congratulations, great." And I really wondered whether the session would be as great as it was made to seem on the poster. Nevertheless, I was very happy when I was given this kind of publicity. So I remain indebted to you. But of course, you also made me feel nervous by telling me, by speaking to me about the caliber of the members of KMA, and I felt slightly nervous. And Nirmala, for the information of the members, even went to the extent of wondering whether the picture that I sent was formal enough or not. So that itself made me feel even more nervous. But I must say that the happiness quotient is greater than nervousness quotient. And of course, even if I fail, I looked at your mission statements. Growing is always giving, taking, sharing, and learning. So I am here to learn from you. Togetherness ensures growth. So when we are together, I'm sure there will be some kind of growth, if not coming from me, emanating from me, but together. Somehow togetherness ensures growth. Innovation brings growth. Perfection perfects growth. About that too, I don't really know whether I have anything to add there. Hopefully, I will have something in all these areas to offer to you. So let me now share my screen to make a presentation on the topic, the art of articulation. As I said, I actually left out the wow factor simply because I'm really worried about the wow factor. But then when I say art of articulation, the first meaning any dictionary would give you is about the way people pronounce words or the area of phonetics. But that is not my area of concern or interest, because I'm not an expert when it comes to the question of phonetics. My focus today is about the art of speaking. Now, because, when you describe someone as an articulate speaker, you don't really focus only on the way the person pronounces words. You also look at the way the person has been able to express himself or herself, the effectiveness of whatever the speaker has been able to achieve. Now, even when it comes to this meaning of articulation, I'm not really talking about public speaking. I'm actually talking about what it is to be an effective communicator. Now, the focus on communication, again, is not only in the professional setup, it is also at the personal level. How we communicate with one another. Do we turn out to be pleasant people because of our ways of communication, the way in which we communicate? It could also be the professional setup where you have to keep in mind the type of communication, as they say, horizontal, vertical, diagonal, etc., etc. So I'm not really talking only about professional communication or public speaking. For me, this is more general in nature, because I feel that if we keep a few things in mind as communicators, we would probably be good communicators irrespective of the situation in which we are placed. And why is communication that important? Because 70% of our wakeful state is spent on communication. So we have to think about it. And the question is whether we think about it. Most of the times we forget that it's a dangerous area. We take communication for granted because we as human beings have the ability to speak. We have developed languages and we think that we can communicate. But it's a very dangerous area, and the danger is now enhanced, has been compounded, because we are in a globalized world. As Nirmala said in her opening remarks, we are now in a multicultural, cross-cultural, intercultural setup. And that is why we need to be more wary of how we communicate with one another. Now, I was really stunned and probably even shocked when I came across this particular example of what linguists term as world's most tragic translation. So when it comes to the word mokusatsu, this is the example given to explain how words can be misinterpreted and where the interpretation can go haywire. And one of the most tragic examples is in front of you. And as you can see from the slide, it was when the Allied forces wanted Japan to surrender and sent this particular message to Japan. And Premier Kantaro Suzuki used the word mokusatsu, and it was taken as ignore. And the Allied forces were all up in arms against the statement made by the premier. And then we know the tragedy that this particular statement ensued. But much later, years later, not years later, maybe a few years later, not much later, a few years later, this particular observation was made that the word mokusatsu was misinterpreted because it was taken as ignore, whereas it was actually withhold comment. So this led to the misinterpretation, and it led to what gets termed as one of the most harrowing tragedies that history has ever recorded. Now, today, my focus is not on body language, but I would just like to place before you one small example to show that even in gestures, because of the setup in which we are placed, a lot of many interpretation problems can come up, because what is true in one particular nation is not true in another nation. However, what comes as a relieving feature is the fact that the problems that we have got in communication falls under what we call the zone of proximal development, because with interventions, we can improve ourselves. Now, the first circle is, of course, something that we can do on our own. The outermost circle is something which we will never be able to do. But when it comes to communication skills, it falls under the zone of proximal development. So if we try, we can do something about it. And that comes as a relieving and refreshing idea, because it shows that we can take help and we can improve ourselves, because it's a skill. Now, I won't make it interactive for two reasons. One is that I'm given just 30 minutes for my presentation. So on a Zoom platform, when we try to make it interactive, to elicit response from the people takes a lot of time. So the speaker is likely to lose out on that much time. And also it's a little difficult to make it interactive. However, maybe at the end, when you have the Q&A session, you can make it very interactive. Now, I have given these pictures only because it's a known fact. There is nothing new about what I'm saying. Just as swimming, cycling is a skill, you learn it. I can't say that I will sit on the cycle and start riding it. I can't say I will jump into the water and start swimming. It's a skill that I learn. In the same manner, communication skills are also skills to be learned, and that is why I say it comes under the zonal proximity area. But then, as the saying goes, skill is nil without will. Unless we actually tell ourselves, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and improve my communication skills. Now, this I say especially because in her presidential salutations, Nirmala also mentioned students. So if we have a few students here, I would stress this particular point of saying that we must tell ourselves that I have this will in me to improve my communication skills. This I say because Worldometer has come up with this statistics that now we are not at 8 billion, nearly 8 billion strong world globally. And out of these, only 2% of us go out of our comfort zone to do things that would actually improve us, even if it means facing a little bit of frustration, facing kind of disappointment, all that. But some of us show this strength of character. We show this inclination, proclivity to improve ourselves. But unfortunately, that percentage is as low as 2%. Now, I think all of us, if we have that growth in our mind, if we are looking at growing together, being perfect, being innovative, we must try and belong to this 2% mindset. Now, for that, we should be prepared to change. Now, I will briefly stop sharing my screen and I will opt for gallery view. And some of you are on video and I thank you very much for that. My close friend Lyra herself is on camera. And I have a few of you on camera. I have Bibu, Punuran on camera and a few others. I also have admin himself on camera. Can I request a few more to come to switch on the camera? A few more at least, for one screen at least. Can I ask you to do that? I still don't have one full screen. Nirmala, you asked me whether Savita would log in. Yes, she has already logged in. Sarita, she wanted to know whether you would log in. All right. I have almost one full screen. Shri Kumar, is it my conference co-chair? No. Anyway, all right. Okay, there is a very small exercise for all of you. Please adjust your cameras in such a way that I'm able to look at your arms. And all that I ask you to do is to cross your arms. Are you able to see my arms being crossed? Please cross your arms. And if you are not within the framework of the camera, please see that you show your arms, raising your arms. All right. Okay. Thank you. All of you have done that. I thank you very much for that. And when I look at it, I see that some of you have your left arm over your right arm. Some of you have your right arm, especially Lekha has her right arm over her left arm, unless you have the mirror image there. Now, even as you are still on camera, okay, try changing it. Try doing it the other way. All right. You too would have been watching others, right? Just as I was watching. Now there was this movement. Now the ones who wanted to do it in the different manner found it uncomfortable to do it. It was this way and then this way and then this way. Then they realized they were going back to the same posture, and very consciously, very deliberately, they changed their posture, right? Now, the reason for conducting this small exercise is that, now, first of all, you tell me, when you try to change, were you comfortable changing it? Admin, do they have the permission to unmute themselves and talk?
Yeah.
Okay. Any one of you? Did you feel, how did you feel? Did you feel comfortable doing it? Any one of you can unmute yourself and say.
Slight uncomfortable.
Okay, who is it? I couldn't get the...
Nirmala.
Nirmala herself, okay. Others maybe are not able to unmute themselves, Murali.
No, it was not that comfortable.
Yes, yes. Bibu is also a co-host. Others are not able to respond because
and those who are showing hands,
themselves.
just unmute,
Yes.
Bridget.
No problem, no problem. It's okay. Let me continue. No problem. Two of you have already given me the answer. So maybe.
I was comfortable. I was comfortable actually.
Okay, you were comfortable. Shailaja.
Dr.
Right?
Shailaja,
okay.
Yes.
Glad to know that, Dr. Shailaja.
Yeah.
But most of us are not comfortable. If Shailaja was comfortable, it shows her propensity for change, right? Now, most of us were not comfortable because we had got accustomed to crossing our arms in one particular manner. And when we tried to change, our conditioning prevented us from changing. But then, if my physiotherapist tells me that instead of crossing my arms in this manner, when I have my right over my left, if I put my left over my right, initially it might be uncomfortable, but I will do it because my physiotherapist has told me that changing the way I cross my arms would help my backache. Then I would do it, won't I? Now, the question that I'm trying to pose before you is that with everything that is connected to our physical well-being, we are prepared to change readily. That preparedness for change is at the highest level. But when it comes to other areas of self-improvement, there is a lot more resistance because we tell ourselves we are not used to doing it. That is why, first of all, I put down, when I shared my screen, I put down the idea of the preparedness to change. Now, only when we have this preparedness to change, we will be able to improve ourselves, whichever might be the area. Now, this is why I asked you to cross your arms. And this is a saying that appealed to me very much. Okay. If we never change our mind, why have one mind at all? Now, if we have to change our mind, as Socrates says, we should know ourselves. Socrates, the wisest of the lot, who had the wisdom of saying that my wisdom is the wisdom of knowing that I know nothing. And I take it as a great saying that I've ever come across in the words of philosophers. So he says, know thyself. And that is why I'm going to share with you a concept that has always been very dear to my heart. I'm sure that most of you know this, the Johari window concept. I can't see all of you, and I won't stop sharing again to see how many of you know the concept, because whether you know or not, very briefly, I will go through that. First of all, Johari is a portmanteau name, Joseph Luft and Harrington Ingham, two psychologists coming together. Okay, we have Rakhi Vijay raising her hand. Rakhi, you know the concept. Glad to know that you know the concept. Would you like to talk about the concept, Rakhi, since you have raised your hand? Would you like to say something about it? Admin, is it possible for Rakhi to unmute herself?
Yeah. Rakhi is a trainer. Yes, she can speak.
Yes.
Bridget.
Yes, Rakhi, you have been able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, these 4 windows actually represents who you are, okay, what you know about yourself. Okay, that's the first one. That's the open window, which is known to everyone. And the second one that is hidden is only known to you, but you have still not shown yourself outside. And then the third one is actually what others knows about you. And the fourth one still needs to be, it's unleashed. We still not have discovered that there are so many potential that we have, still needs to be. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. You made my task very easy, Rakhi. Yes. Now, out of these 4 windows, the last one is something that is beyond our area of control, right? We don't have to worry about it. We have to just forget it, because it may or may not come to the forefront unless something drastic happens in our life. So let's forget it. Now, open self, as Rakhi has said, known to self, known to others. Now, maybe even the ones who did not know me before, once I was introduced by Nirmala, had a few points that they came to know about me, and I know those. And of course, hidden, I needn't be an open book for the whole world to read. I will have a few secrets. As far as those secrets don't make me feel guilty when I look at myself in the mirror, I think that's fine. It's okay, because we can't lay bare our soul in front of the whole world. Of course, the most dangerous is the blind self, because other people know about it, but we don't know anything about it. Now, this is where we come to the area of constructive criticism and our willingness to listen to what other people have to say about us. And that is important in any area of growth. And I won't say that this blind self should be only about our weaknesses. Very often it could also be about our strengths. We may not know the potential that we have got. Now I come to the 3 areas of communication that this Armenian Mehrabian came up with. And this is again a cliched idea. All of you, most of you would know it, that he says that 55% of our impact as communicators is dependent on body language, 38 on the vocal variety, vocalics, and only 7% would be the actual words that we speak. Of course, this has been grossly misunderstood and misinterpreted. It doesn't mean that my text can be nonsense and I will be able to take that test to anybody at all and make up for it with my body language or vocal variety. That's not the idea. Your text will be there as a text which is
What happened?
the text is going to fail. And that is what we mean by saying, am I audible, Nirmala?
Yes, you are.
Yes. For a minute, it said that my internet was not stable. So I wondered, because sometimes on Zoom platform, you will be talking with all your flourishes, then suddenly you come to know that you have actually been logged out. So yes, thank you. So it doesn't mean that words don't mean anything. Words do mean a lot, but then we must take care to see how to compound the effect of our words with vocalics and kinesics. That's what we mean by tone and body language. Of course, body language comprises all these points. Since it is not my area of focus today, I have put it at the end to take up only if I have some time. I'm not going to take it, but vocalics will come directly under the art of articulation, because under vocalics, we have some points that we can take up under the art of articulation. And Zanden says of quantified communication, CEO of quantified communication, says that even if there is 10% improvement in our vocal variety, we are going to have a lot of impact on the listeners. So we have to take into consideration what we call vocalics and the vocal variety when we talk about the art of articulation and communication skills. As all of you know, there are different P's of vocal variety: pace, the speed with which I speak. Now, if you want to test and see whether your speed is right, all that you need to do is put down all that you're going to speak, put it down in black and white. And if you have 100 words for 1 minute, your speed is going to be more or less the same. So if I'm given 5 minutes to talk, I must see that I have around 500 words. Even if I am a speaker who can speak fast, I cannot go way beyond 500 words, maybe 50 words more. But otherwise, I must remember that on an average, people can have 100 words a minute. Now, pitch. Pitch depends on the kind of audience that you have. Now, when it is the Zoom platform, I don't think we raise our pitch. But then if I'm in an offline meet and I have a large gathering in front of me, I need to raise my pitch. And I never used to do it earlier until one of my friends told me that I sounded monotonous because I did not raise my pitch. And I wondered how on earth it was possible for me to raise my pitch. And I asked her for demonstration, and she did give me a demonstration. And she said, you tend to say, Malini, ladies and gentlemen, irrespective of the crowd in front of you. But if you have a large crowd in front of you, you need to say, ladies and gentlemen, you have to raise your pitch. So that was a piece of advice that she gave me, which was very helpful for me. And when it comes to power of words, it doesn't mean only volume. When you say power of words, whether you bring those words from deep within, and not that all words need to be brought from deep within, from the diaphragm, because not all words need to be powerful words, but there can be a few words which are powerful. And when it comes to those words, we must learn how to make them powerful. And I repeat myself, it doesn't necessarily mean increasing the volume, because you have a mic in front of you in an offline meet. So it isn't really necessary to increase the volume as such, because it might amount to shrieking. But then if I want to talk about something that is important, probably if I want to say something by way of an example, and I want to say that this is the most significant aspect, and when I say it is imperative for you to learn it, so I can try to put that kind of power to the word imperative, because I want the audience to get that particular message. Now, pause is very important, and most of us take it for granted. So I have a few slides on this aspect of pause. Just as you know, a comma in the written language equates itself with a pause in our spoken language. Now, I have put this because Lynn Truss is the one who has worked exhaustively on the aspect of comma. Of course, she has shown with examples how the whole meaning can change when the placement of the comma changes. So I have put that at the bottom, and you yourself can see how the meaning changes when the comma gets shifted. Now, in the first sentence, you have no comma at all. In the second, you have a comma. So in the second, the whole sentence becomes different and rather illogical in this instance, because we are talking about a panda. A panda eats, shoots, and leaves. A panda eats, shoots, and leaves. So suddenly the whole meaning is lost just because a comma has been introduced. Now there in that example, a comma was introduced. In these two examples, again, the comma gets shifted and the whole meaning is twisted, misunderstood, misconstrued. So you can take a look at the examples. I'm not going to read them. The second example is also a little naughty, so you can read for yourselves and look at the meaning changing with the placement of the comma changing. Of course, this is what we sometimes ask students when we teach punctuation in class, and many of you will be in a position to give the answer. If you are interested in giving the answer, just as Raki did, you can use the raised hand reaction button and you can come up on the log and you can give the answer. Now, what we say when we take classes on punctuation is that in this particular sentence, just by putting a comma in two different places, we will come up with two diametrically opposite meanings. One comma in two different places, we can come up with diametrically opposite meanings. Would anyone like to try out the meaning? Okay, Lyra has raised her hand. So Lyra is the immediate past president of my club, Port Town. Yes, not immediate past area director of my area. Yes.
Yeah, good
Yes,
evening,
Lyra.
everybody. Yeah. In this sentence, spare him, not hang him. You can either put it like spare him, comma, not hang him, or spare him, not comma, hang him.
Yes, exactly, Lyra. A round of applause. Yes. If you
Thank
say spare him with a comma and then you say not hang him, or when you say spare him not hang him, you come up with two diametrically opposite meanings. So to that extent, a comma can change the meaning, can change probably the decisions also. Now, Bibu, you have come up on the log. Is it to tell me that time is up? So when my time is up, you can tell me. It is 6:40. So I think I've already taken my 30 minutes.
Please go ahead, ma'am. No problem.
All right. So very quickly, although I said that my focus was not on phonetics, when I said the art of articulation, let me just add one or 2 points here. Yes, my area of focus is not phonetics, but let us be aware that pronunciation of English words can be quite baffling to those of us who are not native speakers of English, because we have only 26 letters, 5 vowels, and 21 consonants. But it's not that we have 26 sounds, we have 44 sounds. That itself shows that pronunciation can be an area of concern. Now, just for fun, I'm asking you to pronounce this word. This is only for fun, okay? I'm not making any great I'm not offering you any great learning here. This is only for fun. Would any one of you attempt the pronunciation of this? Some of you might have come across it earlier as a brain teaser. So would any one of you try pronouncing this for me?
Goti.
Yes, Goti. Who said it?
Algiers.
Okay, all right. Yes, that's how you would pronounce it because it is Ghoti. But I can have an argument with you and I can say, no, I want to pronounce it as fish. Okay.
Yeah, it is already there in the chat box, ma'am. Mr. V.R. Nair said fish.
Okay. Good. All right. I didn't check the chat box. Yes, I can now see that there are messages on the chat box. Yes, correct. As I said, some of you might have come across this brain teaser because you can have this kind of argument and say that enough, F of enough should be F of fish. And when it comes to, women, so I must say that I sound I get in the, Ghoti of O there. And all of us know that there are so many words which give us that sh sound when it is with the TI. So for argument's sake, I can say that it is not Ghoti, it is fish. Now, this is only by way of a light-hearted example to show how eccentric the world of phonetics when it comes to the English language can be. Having said this, let me also say that it's not necessary to be too conscious. I'll come to that part later, but here I have a few words on the screen and each of these is not exactly easy examples when it comes to phonetics. If at all any one of you would like to try this out, you may try out the pronunciation of these words. Anybody who would like to try this out?
Ori?
Could you use the raised hand?
Yes, Dr. Shailaja ma'am is trying. Yeah. Go ahead, ma'am.
Ori, gigantic, debris, facade, key, onion, yacht, zealous, elite, jeopardy, chasm, and niche.
Very good. I am really astonished by the fact that you pronounce Q-U-A-Y rightly as key. May I know how you came to know about that pronunciation? Because anyone...
Rajit, please unmute Shailaja ma'am.
Pardon me?
Well,
Yeah.
I did learn a bit of phonetics, I have to confess.
Very good. In fact, I will share with you as to how I came to know the right pronunciation of Q-U-A-Y. It was in one of the poems that I had to teach in class. And that poem had the right rhyme scheme throughout. And suddenly, when it came to this particular line that ended with this particular word, the rhyme scheme was not intact if I pronounced it as Quay. So I started wondering and I started looking for some explanation. And that is when, to my horror, I came to know that it is pronounced as key. The only two places where I think I can offer you an improvement upon is the first word. It is not Ori, although 9 out of 10 would pronounce it as Ori. It is actually Arai, A and W-R-Y. So you have that Arai. And Z-E-A-L is zeal, but when it comes to the adjective, it becomes zealous. But for that, all the other words, most difficult ones, were also rightly pronounced by you. Thank you very much for that. Having said that, let me also say that we don't have to give too much importance because earlier we had only this concept of English, that is RP. Now, RP is for received pronunciation, or the other terms that we use for RP is Standard English, Queen's English, BBC English. Those are the terms that we use when it comes to RP. Now, we have substituted that RP now with regional pronunciation, simply because English is the lingua franca of the world, and it is spoken in the maximum number of countries. And that is why we now have not one English, we have Englishes in the plural. That is why we now say if the regional pronunciation is different from the received pronunciation, which we have received from the British, even if it is different, if that is going to make more sense to your listener, it is all right. You can follow that particular pronunciation. However, if my pronunciation is going to bring a problem in communication, if the other person is not able to understand what I'm trying to say, that is where we have to stand corrected. Let me just share a small anecdote from my life. This was when I was very young. I was not married. I was just 20. And I'd been to Mysore to apply for my MA course. And there was one handsome young man who helped me a lot on the campus. Those days, I used to have many handsome men who tried to help me. All right. So he came with me to different counters and all that. And at one particular counter, I did not have change and he gave me 2 rupees. The next counter, when I got that change, I offered to give him that 2 rupee back. And then he said, "Don't embrace me," he said. And suddenly I was taken aback as to why he said, "Don't embrace me." I wondered whether I looked like a person of loose morals, jumping at the prospect of embracing any and every handsome man that I happened to meet. So with confusion writ large on my face, I again offered the 2 rupee note. Those days, 2 rupee meant a lot. He again took one more step backwards and he said, "Don't embrace me. It's such a small amount," he said. And that is when I realized that he actually meant to say embarrass, but he said embrace. Now, this is a typical example of pronunciation leading to miscommunication. So to that extent, we need to be worried about the way we pronounce our words. Otherwise, I think regional pronunciation is fine, because the right pronunciation of OPPORTUNITY is opportunity. But if I sit and say, or if I stand and say in my class, "You must make use of every opportunity that comes your way," my students may get slightly disturbed by my pronunciation of the word. So knowing fully well that it is opportunity, I may still choose to say opportunity, because that is the refined or changed version of RP, that is the regional pronunciation. Now, let us also be proud that the English have borrowed words from us, right? Now, juggernaut, which has this particular meaning of that sudden, powerful, unstoppable pull, gets connected to the carnival as at Puri, Jagannath temple, where the chariot used to be pulled by people. And as they pulled the chariot, they would shout, "Hare Hare Jagannath, Hare Hare Jagannath." And the British took the word juggernaut from the proper noun of our Lord Jagannath. So let's be proud that we have our own words, and you Keralites, you have your own Shashi Tharoor. And I think he is the one who has amazed us with all kinds of words. For example, this is the example given of the words that Shashi Tharoor uses. But then, having said this, let me also say that it's not possible for all of us to have this kind of articulation, but let us try and have the kind of articulation that we would have without making mistakes. There is a whole lot of vocabulary, grammar, usage, etc., etc. I'm not going to dwell upon that. And followed by this is the body language. I will stop at this, Nirmala, because I think we have really taken, I have taken more than the time.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. There are 2 questions in the chat box.
Yes.
By
Yes.
Mr.
Shall I
A.
stop
Balakrishnan.
sharing?
Yeah.
Shall I stop sharing my screen?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. And there are 2 questions that was asked by Mr. A. Balakrishnan. He is our senior vice president. So, first question is social media communication style, heavy use of emotions, changed communication standards to new level. You have any views on the impact of this change? That's the first question. And the second question is COVID-19 pandemic accelerated digest, digitization of meetings, seminars, one-on-one meetings, etc. Do you think rules of communication will also change? These are the two questions he asked.
Yes. The first one is about the heightened emotions that we get to see in the social media communication. Am I right?
That's right.
Okay. Who is the one who asked the question you said?
Sorry, this Mr. A. Balakrishnan. Sir,
Okay.
can you just...
Yes.
ABK, you can see this ABK.
All right. Okay. I don't approve of it because emotions should go with the words that you use. So unless the words actually call for that kind of heightened emotion, just for sensationalism, we cannot use that overplay of emotion. And as you rightly pointed out, that is what is happening in social media now. And I feel that this is all sensationalism. And in the journalism, you have, again, what we call yellow journalism, everything for making everything sensational. So I would oppose it. I would say that it's the wrong way of communicating. That kind of heightened emotion is asked for only when the situation calls for that kind of emotion. Supposing I'm talking about probably a brutal murder, I may have my emotions getting heightened. But for that, the way of heightened emotion that we now have is to silence the other person. That is what we have been seeing even with anchors. They come up with heightened emotion simply because they want to silence a voice of dissent. Whenever they want to silence the voice of dissent, they come up with that heightened emotion. So I feel it is a put-on act of heightened emotion just to silence a voice of dissent. That is the first question. The second question, yes, definitely. Now, digitalization has changed and one-to-one communication has definitely changed. The kind of words that you would use when you are working with one more in a digital setup would definitely be different from what it would be when you have face-to-face communication. And it's even more difficult, I feel, because there is a greater scope for misunderstanding and miscommunication. And probably, the kind of jargon that we have to use when we communicate with one another digitally should be developed now, I feel. Probably there should be a focus on that. And what kind of jargon, what kind of register, digital register that we need should be developed. As of now, I don't think a lot of work has gone into it, but I'm sure soon a lot of work will go into it, where they will come up with a register that could be called digital register. But it is definitely different from face-to-face communication.
Okay. The first question, that actually not emotion that he meant, what he meant was emoticons.
Emoticons. Okay. Emoticons. Emoticons, you mean to say in our WhatsApp messages?
Yes, you can see it there in that WhatsApp APK, social media communication style, heavy.
Okay. Emoticons. Okay, sorry. Emojis and emoticons. Okay. Sir, I use a lot of them because I feel that it makes my tone visible. All right. Now, when you write, ABK is muted, I believe. So he says he's unable to talk. So maybe the admin can unmute ABK. Yeah. So let me tell you that.
1 second, madam.
Yes.
See, today what is happening is people are, because of heavy use of WhatsApp or any social media app, many people are unable to express their views without emoticons. Even in a professional communication, unnecessarily youngsters are using all these things. So my question is, fundamentally communication is to exchange ideas. I am not against that. Today, because of our age factor or tradition, trust and all, that is actually triggering our thought on communication standards. My question to you is, what will happen over a period of time? The entire methodology of communication will change, or we continue with the traditional punctuational, the wonderful coined words. If I don't know a word, I'll put an image, whether it is okay or not. That is the crux of the matter. The second question is, even in interviews, see, in interviews, when we recruit somebody, it is not, we measure the person not only through the verbal communication, the body language, or even we give a paper and ask him to write or ask him to solve a problem, multiple means. With the virtual communication, what is actually happening, we are unable to measure all those things. And even there is something like moonlighting. People are now called, there is another way, somebody else will, they will allow somebody else to sit adjacent to them without seeing in the camera and helping this person. So these are new ways of things happening in the world. So what is your view, how it will evolve? It is initially in the hype cycle, and now it will evolve in a new medium of communication, a new methodology of communication. So whether the rules you said 4 rules of the communication, will that continue in future?
Okay. The first question was on emojis and emoticons that get used even in a formal setup, you said. Now, as of now, they are not welcome in a formal setup. I feel that it's a very informal way of communicating. And when I communicate in an informal manner, I do use them because, as I have already stated, I use them because in my written communication, my tone is not seen. So if I want to say that I'm not very serious about what I say, I may put one smiley to show that the other person needn't take me very seriously. But that is, having said that, let me reiterate that it is still at the informal level. Professionally, it shouldn't be so even now. Now, whether it will evolve into an acceptable form, it might, most likely it will, because language has kept changing and growing. And I'm sure that there will be a time when all these things will become acceptable even professionally, whether we like it or not. Because I remembered that some time back, you see, when it comes to note making, we do allow all kinds of short forms. In class, we teach them how to use these short forms for note making, but we don't allow those short forms in our answers, in the answer scripts. But when we take up this particular point of note making, we ourselves teach them as to how they can use short forms, etc., which is informal. But whether it will evolve and be accepted, I would say yes, it would evolve and get accepted, because that's how language keeps changing, and it will happen sooner or later. And as you yourself pointed out, the whole scenario has changed. It's not only the question of when the person comes for the interview, judging him from the dress and all that. Now you can go to any of the social media, and even after you have interviewed a person, if you want to know a person in a deeper manner, if that person has an account on Facebook, Instagram, if the person tweets, if the person has a blog, all employers can easily go to those and can have a greater understanding of what kind of employee they're going to have. So there is nothing that is right now that can be termed totally private, because we have all become public figures, because we are all on social media. So that's what I would say, that scenario will change and this will evolve. But as of now, in the professional setup, this kind of language is not yet accepted. Maybe companies like Google that go in for a lot of informality, they may accept things of this kind. But otherwise, I feel companies are still formal, leave alone companies, even when it comes to entrance exams like CAT, MAT, GRE, you see that it is the traditional grammar that is still expected of the candidates. So if these entrance exams expect traditional grammar, I'm sure that they think of companies also as looking for that kind of formal usage of language.
So no more questions. I can't find any other questions in the chat box, so therefore. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, Dr. Malini Hebbar. It was indeed a great session. You made the art of articulation a wow factor today. Thank you so much. Communication skill can be learned. Skill is nil without will. Prepared to change the crossing the hands that exercise. There are a few exercises that you showed was really very engaging and interesting. And resistance, we are not used to doing it. That's the reason. Preparedness to change is in our mind. Know thyself, Socrates. Jahari windows open, blind, hidden, unknown. 55%, 38%, 7% statistics of communication. And there are a lot to learn. And 4 P's, pace, pitch, power, and pause. And 26 letters and 44 sounds. It was great listening to you, ma'am. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely seeing you, listening to you. Thank you very much. And with this, there are some announcements. We have got other programs coming on 14th, 21st, and 28th of this month, and 28th we have got the LeaderInsight session again on by Dr. Shanila Laju, Group Chief Executive Officer of Medcare Hospitals and Medical Centers in the UAE, on the topic customer experience transformation in healthcare industry. And coming up in August, KMA Digital Summit on the 25th of August, and SYMP Shaping Young Minds program on 26th August 2022. 2 big events are finalized in August. Please make a note of it. And IMA, this is very important for students and others as well. IMA has been running a very unique program for young people called their Shaping Young Minds program, that is called SYMP. The program provides a platform for young professionals and management students to interact with the iconic leaders from various fields, which is in collaboration with all our local management associations. Okay, please, Bridget will provide the link. Kindly register. It is free registration. With this note, I invite our Honorary Secretary, Mr. Algiers Khalid, to propose vote of thanks, please.
President Nirmala Lilly, our invited speaker of the day, Dr. Malini Hebbar, Program Committee Chair and Vice President of KMA, Mr. Bibu Punuran, galaxy of past presidents of KMA, Managing Committee and KMA members. Thank you, Dr. Malini Hebbar, Principal of Swastik College, for sparing your valuable time to be here today at KMA and for sharing interesting inputs on very fascinating topic, the art of articulation. Madam, it was really interesting to hear from you all about art of speaking to be an effective communicator. Thank you for introducing the word mokosatsu and the disastrous consequence in the history behind incorrect translation in a communication. In a different context, I was reminded about William Shakespeare's character Malaprop for the word malapropism, unintentional humorous misuse of the word. Thank you also for the important words of wisdom that to be prepared to change, one needs to know oneself. Johari Widow made me really wonder about the unknown things about all, including myself. Meherbain model and importance of vocalics, vocal variety, and all the rules of communication were all very valuable takeaways for today. Indeed, very interesting and fascinating. I'm sure everyone thoroughly enjoyed the session. Thank you, Dr. Malini Hebbar. Please give her a loud applause.
Thank
As
you.
President Nirmala Lily mentioned in her introductory remarks, KMA's Leader Insight series is a much awaited event where all members get opportunity to listen to leaders in different spheres of life. Thank you, President, for so nicely introducing your friend and today's speaker and also the topic. It was completely different from our usual session. Thank you, Program Committee Chair and Vice President of KMA, Mr. Bibu Punnoran, for warmly welcoming everyone in his unique style. Thanks to all the past presidents, Managing Committee, and KMA members for attending today's session. We had a reasonably good attendance throughout the session. I would also like to place on record and thank KMA Secretariat team led by our Executive Director, Lieutenant Jojo Jacob, and his team of members, Prijit, Sandra, Ajmal, and Rengson. Thank you all. Also, thanks to our program sponsors, Medivision and Varma Homes. They both play a very important role in the success of all the programs of KMA. Before I conclude, I request our Secretariat team member, Prijit, to please share the specially curated digital version of the memento for the speaker. Madam, this is an online virtual version. The physical version will reach you soon by courier. To remember your talk today at KMA and cherish it forever.
This comes as a real pleasant surprise. Thank you very much. I've not seen anything more innovative than this, more thoughtful as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, one and all. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Ajay. And thank you. And the meeting adjourned. Kindly unmute everyone for networking.
Madam, it was